Alright, 7. Let's start it.
Okay.
What did you say to me?
Said
He's
you have
giving you
beautiful
orders.
eyes.
We usually like to wait for like an hour or two before starting.
Nor entered
Oh,
your
nice.
channel
Let me
default
turn my
channel on
music
the
Can we
back
at
up.
server.
least get a ready check for the next ready check?
Alright, we're gonna do my first raid ever in WoW. I'm gonna go down through the list and everyone has to say on their microphone that they are capable of raiding. Okay.
I'm screwed.
TeamSpeak user
do you
entered
want me
your
to
channel default channel on the
lie?
server.
Yeah.
Yes.
BNT entered your channel default
All in
channel on the
favor
server.
of getting rid of the retard?
Aye.
Hey.
Which one?
You know damn well who I'm talking about.
Yes. I'm in favor of getting rid of the retard. Wait, am I the retard? Don't
TeamSpeak
get rid
user
of me.
disconnected from your channel default channel from the server. Nightblade has been renamed.
G1000? Yeah. Alright, we're at 38.
Not Flinch entered your channel default channel on the server.
39. One more for the full 40.
BNT disconnected from your channel default channel from the server.
38.
Buttbucker entered your channel
39.
default channel on the server. Message sent.
Okay, I think we can get started.
Here we go again.
Here we go again. Alright, so the general itinerary
Wait, are you
for...
recording it?
Yes. You just screwed
just
up
making
my
sure.
Just so
start.
everyone knows, Pro records everything.
You just screwed it all. I'm gonna restart now.
Sorry.
No, just in general, it's more of a spitfire. If you guys have questions, we probably have answers. We are going to essentially everything that we do on this server is a test run for Classic, which is TBD, but is definitely all in once it does come out.
That's some shit.
Yeah.
For
So
people who don't know that Pro, the guild leader, get used to his voice.
yes, I am Pronator, the head honcho. I get all gear. Just kidding. Okay, so I did just link a temporary spreadsheet of our priority list. This is something we made probably a year or two ago now. We need to update it with some stuff which we'll be doing probably this week, and kind of have everyone just like give an okay. This is kind of one of the big ways you can kind of avoid drama when items do eventually drop, which they will. If you're under the persuasion where you're all about gear, then this probably isn't going to be a good fit for you anyhow, because we're all about the raid and individuals don't matter. They do matter, but you know what I mean.
But that doesn't mean that we don't take loot very seriously, in the sense that we make sure it goes to the right
Logic joined your
classes,
channel default channel on the server.
players, not so much the right name. Not saying that it's going to go to this person because of whatever. It's going to go for a series of reasons, but we take loot seriously.
Yeah, very seriously. And we kind of pride ourselves in not having many issues. I mean, we've been around since Nost first released, so as the guild, we've been here for 3 years and 2 months now. We've done, just for a little history, on Old Nost, we did over 100 raids. We played on K2, we played on
Minnow entered
Anathema,
your channel default
we
channel
played
on
on
the server.
TBC servers and RAS servers. But the general consensus was we all met in vanilla, and that was like what we truly loved. I guess part of the reason is other servers for TBC and Rat just never got it right compared to what we remember, I guess. So this is actually probably the first server that I've played on a long time that actually gave me like a, even though the population is not correct, it actually feels more authentic than I've really felt since, I mean, NOS felt very authentic, but this to me feels even more authentic, I think. If you've been with us, you know we've had this August 1st like kind of deadline thing, something to strive for. At the moment, with most of us being like in the higher 40s, low 50s, that probably isn't realistic for our first raid. Because you have 7 days from now to, like, as a guild, we need to average like 10 plus levels, which
And gear.
yeah. So
The gear's not the main thing. It's mostly just the getting to the 60s, but we're not far off. It's not that we're sitting here and be like, okay, in a month from now, it's a matter of probably an extra week
So maybe the
is
second?
required at this point. This following week exactly is probably when we're thinking we have. We have about 52 to almost close just to 60 players that are of 47 or about 45 or higher. So that's more than sufficient time frame, I think, for all of those players to reach 60s. Dire Maul comes out as well the first night of the August 1st, so that is a huge source of a lot of players best in slots, and will be a general assist to Molten Core. Not that Molten Core is by any means of any difficulty, but will be a starting point for a lot of people's gear. So
yeah,
we figured if we
initially
push it an extra week.
Initially, the reasoning behind it was on K3 we had opportunities to start raiding and pugging right away, and we kind of let it slip through our fingertips. And because that happened, there was people that left, and if you've played on there, you know the server was dying at the moment too.
Let's talk about them for a second. Wonder Capital is an investment platform that allows you to invest in solar.
So,
Go
Hey,
on.
let's hear that.
what?
Hear what?
The talking
Sorry, go
stopped
ahead.
for a bit, so I was going to ask a question.
Go ahead, question it up.
Did you hear me, Pro?
So, the loot stuff. One of the things I've had happen in the past is, like, I understand some things are a bigger upgrade to other people, and I'm totally cool with them, people getting bigger upgrades. But I also feel like the effort people put into their own character should go to something.
It does.
Yeah,
You know,
and
if I might have better gear if I put a lot of work into it. I don't like feeling that it has happened in the past where you don't get upgrades because you worked hard on your gear.
Well,
So this is a
part of
two-part.
the requirements for even getting any piece of gear in our guild. First and foremost, now this doesn't take into account like the first few weeks because we're all kind of in the same boat. But eventually, we look for you have to have 75% of your pre-raid best in slot to be considered for loot. That shows that you're putting in effort, and it doesn't show that you're like, you know, there's always potential that there's a few pieces that are looting you no matter how many runs you're doing. Like, for instance,
Yeah, there's
if you're
an
getting-
RNG factor, but
But
I just wanted to clear that up, and I
if
thought other people might want to know that as well.
if you're showing up and you've got it's obvious that you're trying to get your pre-raid and it's enchanted and you're consuming, then you have nothing to worry about. And if you're a no-lifer that can just poop socket all the way to 60 and hit 60 before everybody, that doesn't mean that you're a better player and that you're going to get prioed on loot either.
Yeah,
Yeah.
plenty fair enough. I just, like I said, I'm probably not the only person who is interested in understanding that
No,
better.
yeah, and it's a lot more to it than just like, so basically in order to get loot going down the road, like as Pro said at the beginning, pretty much you can't just be like, these people are raiders, they get the loot when it's, you know, just a start. But obviously you're still going to take into account looking at people's gear. Like if we roll up into raid and something of note drops, which is we mentioned as well when it comes to talking about the loot, which is what we're pretty much talking about. But there's some items that are loot council in a sense, and the loot council isn't, again, it's not by name, it's about, you know, how much effort did you put into your character, you know, how much effort have you put into helping people, how much effort have you put into the raid, you know, are you fully consumed, is your gear enchanted, you know, all that kind of stuff will be added to when it comes to the big ticket items in all the instances, and all those items will be shown in the Google documents, which ones they are. It's all visible. The whole guild will be able to talk and say, you know, discuss which pieces they feel should be going to which classes first, and all the changes are made are very transparent and stuff.
You were poked
but
by
the main thing is, at the very beginning, no one has the rank, but later on, when we do have rank, you need to have 75% to be a raider. You need to make sure you make a certain amount of raid percentage per month, which is all tracked and visible, to be a raider. You need to make sure you're consumed to the degree we ask for. So some raids we may ask for more than others, and things may be like world buffs, you know, whatever is required. You know, it's provided that you do these things. It's all like kept track of, and that will all be added towards you being the right rank. And then it comes down to DKP, which is still given, which is for about 90% of the items in the game will be basically done via DKP with
channel on the server.
prior loot system shown. So every item has a class priority, and again discussed by the whole guild, but everything is basically shown as to which class is eligible. Those people will bid. We'll explain the bidding system shortly, but basically everything's thought out so that no one feels like loot is being wasted or given to the wrong players or in any way cheated to the people or anything like that.
But what I gathered from it is this: they're gonna do, like, the loot's gonna be considered as what benefits the raid the most, not individual players.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but the reason
So,
I asked
like,
is
if
there's
you're
lots-
well, I'm saying I've been in guilds, and I'm sure we've all been in guilds with people that are like, they don't really give a shit about, they only give a shit about buffing their own personal character, and they don't really care about being a team player or what benefits the raid most, or it's all about me. And if you're that type of player, then you're probably not gonna like it here. Because
Not at all,
They're, I can tell you that Pro and Michael and GSO and everybody that runs the loot are all fair. There's not favoritism or anything.
And these
Everybody's
guys have
fair.
put a lot of thought into making it fair, and yeah, it's one of the things I really like about this guild.
Yeah, everything's fair, and everything's about what helps the guild progress faster.
Yeah, within the 3 years, I think there's only been about 3, maybe 4 issues with loot, and that's like 3 or 4 items ever in 3 years that have ever caused any sort of problem. That was before we really thought through our loot system. So at first it may seem different to a lot of people because it's not just a standard DKP, it's not just a standard loot council, it's not a standard anything. It's really thought through to make it work, where the raid is more concerned about the next boss doing the next thing than, okay, well, did I just get screwed over on that, or is that going to go to the wrong person, or did that person just screw me over by saving up 400 DKP by never taking a single item the entire time because he doesn't want to take upgrades that he needs for the raid because he just wants that one item that he knows that other person, like, we try and eliminate all that kind of stuff and make it so it's more about what's important moving forward, benefiting the raid long term, not just benefiting the raid that raid.
Well, the majority of the items are DKP anyway. It's only a handful that's loot.
Exactly.
A vast majority, yeah. But with that being said, if there's, let's just, as an example, if there's one guy that's like pretty mediocre, he's just barely scraping by making raider, shows up with bare minimum consumes, fucks up, dies half the fights, and he's hoarding his DKP, and something like DFT or CTS or AQR or, you know, stuff that is very, very good and will be used for a very long time drops, we're not going to give it to that person. We're going to give it to somebody that we know is putting in the effort and is here for the long run and
So
won't
you're gonna
flake
tell that
out.
person you're a shitter and you're not gonna get loot?
Basically, step it up
depends.
or you're not getting it.
But
not gonna
that
be-
sort of person, we're not
They
looking
should
to even be in the raid
already
at that point anyhow. So hopefully, we can filter out those sort of people anyhow without
It's
like
not-
everyone have to worry about them.
Things like that also aren't going to be snap decisions. You're also going to have been warned. You're going to have been like, hey, your DPS is kind of lacking. What's going on? Can I help you? Or like, you're not bringing in the right consumes. What's up? You know, like, what? Is there something we can do to help?
Basically,
Like,
once
it's
you
not going
become
to be
raider,
like, fuck you. You're not. You know. It's gonna be
yeah,
like,
he's basically saying once you become raider, it doesn't guarantee that you can now just slack off now because you've become a raider. Like, it's going to come down to just being consistent and just doing well. And it's against criticism either. Like, we're not looking for the absolute 1%ers here, the best of the best. We're just looking for people to put in the effort.
consistency.
And it's not fair to the other players, and that creates more animosity than anything. If there's a person that is, yeah, he shows up to the raids, he puts consumes on, but if he's underperforming and in hoarding KP in a malicious
And like
way,
Michael
in a
said,
sense where
obviously
he's
not taking other upgrades.
like he's not benefiting himself to become a better player. He's just like, I really just want this. That's all I want out of the game, and I'll just hold my DKP for it, and when it drops, I know I can get it, regardless if I sat there and passed on everything else and it's squeak by. But I do everything else. Like, we may look at things like that as not a benefit to the raid, and most people would agree. And you may not see the whispers, but we do, and the problems that come with little things like that. So we try and work that stuff out. But again, like Verity said, it's not going to be something that's just out of the blue. You have no idea that you were underperforming or something like that. We're going to let you know, and it's not going to be in a rude, elitist way. It's going to be in the, you need to step it up. Here's how to step it up.
Message received.
Respectable goals as well. But that also means that maybe it's not the guild for everyone, and there might be some players who just aren't even at that level at all. Like, and unfortunately, that's the way this game is, though.
Can I say something on that
Message
too?
received.
To add, every single person that I've seen in this guild too that performs at a high level is more than happy to help people get better. And so if you're not trying to reach out to them and get better or talk to them, then it's kind of your own damn fault, really, at the end of the day.
Yeah, totally. I'm for tanks, for DPS. GSO is an exceptional warrior DPS. He can, if you're willing
Message
to listen, willing to tell you, and I'm willing to teach any tank how to do anything. There's priests here that'll teach you pretty much, and like Dwell says, there's pretty much somebody here of any
Message
class
received.
that can perform at a very top end. Will be more than welcome or more than happy to lend you an ear and give you a few pointers here and there to help you perform. It's not,
Message
this guild has
received.
never once been
Message received.
kind of we're about having fun, but we're also realize that
Message
WoW
received.
is more of a marathon than a single race like regular retail is. Kind of, it's about looking to the future and realizing, like, maybe classic WoW comes around the corner, who knows, but more than likely it seems like it's a little bit longer out now, and that's the case. This is probably where we're going to be until then, so we want to make the best of it now, and trying to rush in and do things improper will just cause problems for AQ and Nax, because MC and Black Melee are except in trivial instances, so they should.
Does anybody raid log?
Does anybody? Well, it depends on when. I can't say that people don't raid log, because they definitely do, but I find when the server, like when Nostalrius and when K2 was going, people weren't raid logging. People were on farming ecos, farming consumables together, doing dungeons, leveling alts. We had an alt raid
No,
going
I mean
on.
like raid log for like legacy players, like to like
Oh,
compare.
raid
the
logging,
guild.
raid logging.
Oh, raid
logging.
log. Oh,
Yeah,
I'm
sure.
sorry. Yes, of course. Yes, of course. So we'll
Live
have all
logging.
that, and we go through them as well. And if you want to be there, like usually after a raid, we'll go through the logs and see what people were doing, what, and we take it far more seriously than we should be taking it because of being a private server. But we also just, the guild hasn't stayed as
We have a lot of
as long as
very
it has.
competitive players.
Right. But here's
We're a
one
bunch of
thing to
nerds.
add to that. Like, just because you're the top DPS doesn't mean you're doing it right. Like,
Or the top healer, yeah.
or the top healer. Like, if you're doing it selfishly to, like, and like ignoring a mechanic or like purposefully doing something wrong, like mechanically, just to like squeeze in, like that's not
Pad
what we're
the
looking
meters.
for either. Yeah, exactly. We're not looking at, like, if there's no like reason not to, sure. But if you're like sacrificing something, like, oh, we need to heal that person extra because they're padding the meters and now these other two guys died because of it, like, that we don't see as a positive. That's very much a negative. Now, it doesn't mean that you shouldn't be giving it your all at
Yeah,
all times,
just
but
don't pad the meters at somebody else's expense.
yeah, exactly.
Basically, the whole gist of all this, from what I gather, is just don't half-ass it.
Yeah.
You know, just put forth an honest effort. Don't half-ass it, and you should be fine. You're gonna get your loot in due time. You know, you're gonna get everything you want. If you come to raid with a half-ass attitude, then you're probably not gonna be happy.
And our stance has always been this in terms of, just so everyone's aware of, flasking. We don't expect anyone to really flask until we start hitting AQ 40, and that's when you should be basically saving all your flasks and everything, especially like if you're melee and you're like, well, shoot, I obviously don't want to pop a Titans every raid. Well, those first, like, couple weeks where we're actually progressing hard, like, it'd be perfect
Especially
time
on
to
fights
actually
like
have it.
Hoo-Hoo.
So, and that's pretty much standard across most of the top guilds. So we're not to the tryhard point of like, yeah, let's all flash for MC and like get
And
burnt
everybody
out
has to have a warlock ult.
yeah, like, not to that point. Because it is just MC and we can clear it either way. Like, whether we clear it in an hour or whether we clear it in 50 minutes, like, what's the big difference? I guess. Like, down the
that'd be 10
road,
minutes.
it's nice.
10 minutes.
Well, yeah, I mean, down the road, it's definitely nice to make sure like your previous content is cleared as fast as possible. But like when it's current content, it's like, we're gonna clear it, so I would rather you try to save up what you can. And now it doesn't mean like not using like Mongoose and stuff like that. Like, we expect everyone to be doing the basics. And again, every raid is situational and different. Like, if we're like having a hell of a night, and like we don't expect people to be burning through like 20 Mongoose pots or something. Like, it's just not realistic for some of us with like full-time jobs and families and stuff like that. But as you as we go along, like, you definitely should all have like a stockpile in a bank, just so you can like keep it stocked with like stacks of whatever you're using, just so like if you do run into a situation where you have to use more than you're used to, you have extra.
Is there a GoFundMe to pay the GMs to give us good gear, like other people did?
Absolutely.
Baden, are you in TeamSpeak?
But the thing about the Warlock alts, like, everybody should have a Warlock alt because they're just awesome.
So currently we are completely we always end up running with at least one Shadow Priest. Our usual Shadow Priest, multiple servers, decided he wanted to give something else a go, and the person who was supposed to take up his role I don't think wants to play Shadow Priest. So currently we're eventually looking to add a Shadow Priest, but we won't be doing.
He is.
He is doing the Shadow Priest now, or doing the Druid? Druid or Shadow Priest?
Well, Wooble is willing to Shadow Priest if
Shadow Priest going Shadow. Okay, so never mind. So normally we only run one, as you know, because two just fight each other and knock each other's debuffs off, so it's not beneficial.
No, two is
so
not that great.
we already have one in the guild already. but that's, I don't know. Everything's up to I don't want to say everything's up to competition in the sense that everyone should feel for their spot, but realistically you want the top player. But I can guarantee he will be an exceptional Shadow Priest, not to say that you wouldn't be.
Are we not waiting
But we
for
do
ZG,
run one.
or-
We were talking about the idea of running a potential feral, and I personally, and I know Pro is probably with this, Paladin is an exceptional item to use, not for tanking bosses, obviously, it's just for doing trash in things like Blackening Layer, Suppression Room, situational things like that, trash before. So this would be somebody that necessarily doesn't, I don't know, you still heal a lot more than you would be doing prod. But
These
so we're open to that
players
thing.
are usually like, the requirement is you got to be kind of a little bit more of a try hard or
team player,
like to make it worth your weight and as a spot in the raid. Usually the people that are in these weird roles are pretty much not on the priority list. This is something that in the last few weeks we talked about. If for some reason you're getting, like, let's say you are playing that Shadow Priest, it doesn't make sense to give the Shadow Priest prio over your, like the top Warlock or something, but at the same point it doesn't make sense to not give them any priority, like what if they're beating, people, like, so that's something that we're still ironing out, but doesn't mean just because you're in one of these like dumb specs that you're going to be last on prio. It'll basically be based on your performance as like week by week, and it'll be pretty obvious, like, because you'll probably be in the same sort of spot every week.
That also doesn't mean that you'll be playing, like, for instance, Feral right out the gate, right? Because Feral isn't necessarily completely viable in MC. It's not great DPS.
Right. Well, it's the
so
same thing
you
with
will
Shadow
be expected
Priest.
to heal until those specs become more viable.
Yeah, and same with the Shadow Priest, obviously, until the debuff slot changes. It's not, we wouldn't have one either.
Jilly Bean disconnected from your channel. Default channel.
Yeah, is there
from
anybody
the
else that
server.
has any other questions as well?
I have one very specific question left.
Invite Derp Ward to the guild.
They're asking questions in guild chat.
Well, the person, like, if you're going to be a Shadow Priest, obviously you'd have to understand that you would be coming as a healer initially until that time, and you're going to get a spot knowing that you're going to, if it's something that says they're going to do it, they'll already know that going forward, like, they'll change
Message
later.
received.
So you'll have the spot in that sense. So, but again, we don't want to have just 40 raiders in the guild, because if you only have 40 players, that leaves no room for anybody to ever not miss a raid, and to get 100% raid attendance in a 40 man is impossible. Over the last 3 years, we've managed to keep about 30 to 33 people that show up to about 90% raids lifetime, which is amazing in its sense, and a lot of them are here. It doesn't mean a lot of them are going to be able to do the same thing that they've always done. So there's more than a ton of openings for a ton of players, and I'd love to have more around a healthy 50 to 55 raiders, and we can easily move people into raids. It's not difficult to sub players for bosses as long as the people are working together properly. So that means they're sitting outside the instance to zone in immediately, get summoned down. It takes seconds, provided it's been planned through, and I've done this many times with much more of a bench, and it's not an issue as long as people understand that there's never anything personal when it comes to sitting. There's nothing personal when it comes to not being a starter on anything. It's about anything, and it'll be more of a, not so much a first come first serve, but a first come first serve with a class prio. So if we need X amount of this and X amount of that, that's going to take precedence over if 9 or 10 rogues all showed up. But of course, we're also not we're not looking to burn anybody out, so we don't want to just run with the bare minimum of each class. We want to make sure that people, I don't know, this is, like I said, this is a marathon. It's not a race of any means. It's a long time, and we don't want to burn anybody out. That's why I was on with the consumable thing. It's
I've got a question
Hold
for like
on.
when we're in low. Okay,
Hold
go
on,
ahead.
I'll answer Viles first. In terms of our progression speed,
I would say 20.
What?
I'm just answering the people in guild. They're asking questions in guild there.
Yeah, I'm gonna answer Vile first.
Vile's up there, okay.
Yeah, the speed MC usually is 1 week. Like, it's nothing. BWL will, for us, usually it's like 2 or 3 weeks. I think usually we should be able to get to Chromag week 1, and then week 2 or 3 we should have Nef down. That's depending on difficulty and
channel
and
Colors.
on the server.
Yeah, Chromag colors, obviously.
Gear. Yeah.
And then we only did AQ once, and we struggled with the first boss the first week because it was broken.
It's bugged.
But after that, we pretty much went up to twin imps like that week, and then we're starting progression on like the optional bosses and Cthulhu. So we never got to experience Nax as a guild. However, a lot of us did it back in vanilla retail, which is when it actually counts in my book. And some of us actually were able to full clear back in the day, or like me, I got
Minus a
like
boss.
I got like 9 out of 16 back in vanilla, which is pretty good considering most people never even step foot in there.
If you're on, but you're not in the raid, but you're willing to come, do you get DKP as if you're in the raid?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Every
If
person sitting out will always gain the same. If it's like a first time boss kill, you get the bonus DKP, you'll get everything, and that's what people do. I want people to understand that just because you're sitting out doesn't mean, okay, now I log out and I'm not getting into raid for the rest of the night and the game's over. Unless somebody specifically tells you, like, you're not getting back into the raid no matter what, which will never happen. Like, there's no reason. So if you stay on, you'll get the full DKP, you'll get the full benefit, the full evidence, the full everything. And also, it'll be a lot of times it'll be like a switching of things, and you'll get maybe brought in for somebody else, and it'll never be like you're switched out and forgotten now. It's you're switched out because this needed to happen, and then we'll be setting people out. The first raid probably for the first to turn out. If we have something 50 to 55 players on, obviously. It's going to be a lot harder to say this process because everyone's going to try everything.
You're going robot.
Basically, everyone's going to need the loot.
Yeah.
So that's
really
going to come
bad.
down to what's best for basically the raid.
I think what Mike's trying to say is, domo arigato.
I had a question about like.
Your mic is cutting out.
What's your question, Reefer?
I had a question. Well, this isn't really. It's not really. It doesn't really apply to me on this server. It doesn't really apply to me on this server. It will apply, possibly apply on like when actual vanilla comes out, but it might apply to some people in here. So like, if someone's trying to rank up in PvP, right? And I'm not talking about like rank 7 or 8. I'm talking like 10, 11, 12. Like you're actually high rank and you're actually pushing. Will they be allowed to attend raids in that spec, or will they have to spend 300 gold a week on respecs?
And Eva entered your channel.
I don't think that's really something we're going to have to worry about until Classic. I don't really think we're going to have anyone attempting high ranks on this server.
Well, I know none of the core people are.
I think
but there might be
Classic,
some people
though, if you want to go all out, like, I think we need to accommodate for that. Like if you're actually looking to hit rank 13 or 14 and get your like best
You're not even
slot
gonna
stuff.
be able to raid 13 to 14.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you're 13 to 14, you're not raiding. But I'm talking about like 10 or 11, like where you can still raid and still PvP and rank. And I'm saying that for people that are, for like, first of all, people that are high rank like 10, 11, and also when we're in like MC and BWL, not like when we're in Nax.
It shouldn't be an issue.
Yeah, because like MC,
BWL
BWL
should be a non-issue.
That's assuming your DPS isn't like.
Yeah.
You should be able to raid with any rank if you're a good
Well,
player and do decent DPS.
Well, I'm saying,
Warrior
like, if
shouldn't
you're-
come in as Mortal Strike, is what you're saying, I guess.
What I'm saying is, if you're a warrior and you're rank 11 or rank 12, and you're Mortal Strike, are you going to be expected to switch to Fury for the 3 nights a week when we're in Molten Core and BWL?
If it becomes an issue, like we're on a boss where we're wiping because the DPS is low and you're lagging behind everybody, then that's when it would be a problem.
But if we're
Other
just
than that,
steamrolling,
it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
Right. But
Well,
then
for
also,
steamrolling,
like,
but you're taking a spot from somebody who is going to put in the better effort. Like, not saying you're not putting effort in, but like we could. Is my mic still fucking up, or is people?
No, you're
Yeah,
good.
you're good.
Okay, like if you put the effort into ranking, but you got to realize what guild you're in. We are a
Breezy
PvP
entered
friendly
your
guild.
channel
I know the
default
Moist
channel on
guys
the
are
server.
really interested in running PvP, like organized PvP, and we totally condone them. So if people want to get with them to do organized PvP, we're totally with that. But just remember that this is primarily and always has been primarily a PvE oriented guild thing, that we're not for it. So like obviously if you're ranking up to 11 to get your mount, or if it's 12, I think it's 11 to get your mount, and I get that, but if you're not going for 12 or 13, I don't see PvP being your overall priority, I guess. So like once you have your gear and have your rank, just from me as a raid leader perspective, if I'm seeing somebody taking a spot of somebody else because they want to be a PvP spec and you're not taking PvP, in my mind, seriously, because
If you're not
going to
actively
rank.
ranking,
Well,
If
that's
you're
what
not actively
I was
ranking, you're
talking
wasting-
about. People that are like rank
If you're-
11, 12.
If you're trying to go from like 8, 9, 10, and you need to, and you're at your max gold spec, we'll probably allow it to happen because we know there's a means to an end. But if you're just doing it just because you
Yo-ho-ho in your
want
channel
to
default
PvP
channel
and
timed
use
out
our
from the
guild for
server.
loot,
Right.
like
Yeah.
that's all it seems to me. It doesn't look like to me that you're doing this for
But
any
that
other
also
reason than you
doesn't
want the
mean-
guild's
Yeah.
loot.
It doesn't mean
Yeah,
that
no,
you're-
I
channel
wasn't.
default
I
channel
wasn't
on the
talking
server.
about
I'm not
people
s-
at like 7 or 8. I'm talking about people at like rank 12 or rank 11.
No, see, when they're at max rank, and if they say, hey, I need 2 weeks off because I want to go finish 13 to 14, I'm more open to something like that than if they say, hey, I'm rank 11 and I'm don't want to farm the gold to respec to
Yo-ho-ho
be
entered your channel
like
default channel
competitive
on the
in
server.
raid. Just don't want to farm the gold. I have no interest in continuing to rank. I just like PvPing and I like the loot you give me.
Yo-ho-ho
Like,
disconnected from your
so
channel default
realistically,
channel from the
for my point
server.
of view, I'll put up for a bit, but if I see them taking a spot over somebody that's sitting out and they're like, hey, like I'm the right spec, I do more DPS than them, I'm sitting out because like I can't see the means to it. I don't see the fairness in that going long term.
Right. Well,
But
I wasn't talking about
Trignama
somebody who
disconnected
gets rank
from your
11
channel
and decides
default
I'm not
channel
going to
from the
rank
server.
anymore. I'm talking about someone who's actively trying to rank.
Exactly. I'm totally open.
Yeah,
If
yeah,
people are
yeah.
actively ranking, we're more than happy to facilitate, treat them as a regular raider, as long as, like what GSO said, that you're not hindering the raid, because as we kept trying to stress this whole thing, this is about the raid. Yeah, obviously when we're steamrolling content, there's nothing coming on the horizon and people are, branching into other things to keep themselves occupied. We're not going to sit there and burst people's bubbles and stuff, and most people have the loot, but early on, if you're you want to rank on the side while we're doing progression, progression's going to come first in my mind, not your rank. So, it's just pick your times and stuff like that.
Yeah, I
We're
would never.
We're always
like,
exceptionally friendly.
I would never even ask that if I was anything less than rank 10.
Yeah, and
It
we
wouldn't
understand
even-
it. We're very understanding. We think through everything. We also try not to hide things. Like if people don't like the way we're doing stuff, then tell us. We'll talk about it in front of like the whole guild and work it out until it's the way the guild wants things to be.
And just to clear
Especially
up,
because, sorry.
just
Go
to
ahead, Wolf.
clear up PvP, when we're talking classic WoW, like all bets are off with what you're used to as well. Like I understand, like we're gonna be like, I guess for sure the server will be there, so you might have always wanted to hit a certain rank. So, and by all means, like we're going to accommodate to that. And I'm sure, like with respec costs, like for certain people, we might be able to help out as well. If you're like in a critical role. But when it comes to classic, like I think we do want to definitely PvP a lot more. And that's something that me and Mike talked about these servers specifically.
Cultists.
What?
We probably shouldn't be talking about questing while in the middle of a guild meeting. Right.
So the guy that just left is, yeah, he left in vain.
Apparently,
he didn't even
he
finish.
only heard what he wanted to hear.
He didn't let it be explained. And the reason I brought that question up too is because I don't have any plans on doing that on this server, because what's the point? But there are people that might be listening, that might be in here, that might be wanting to do that. So that was more for like just to get that out there for anybody.
You'll
who has
regret
that
it.
question.
If you think it's cool to raid as a PvP,
If you're going above 12.
Yeah, for an infinite amount of time, then I don't want to raid with you
Not
anymore.
infinite. But...
Yeah, I'm talking about people like that who only want to raid as PvP spec. It's like,
no, hell no. That would only be like if you're ranking and if you're high enough where it makes sense.
Basically, once we get like cleared BWL and do that for a little bit, like everyone's PvP grind should be completely over by then. So for 100% sure, AQ and Nax, you have to be the correct spec, otherwise you shouldn't get invited. And then for BWL, I mean, realistically, depending on the timelines and stuff, you should be probably the right spec.
I'm more so speaking to that guy who just left, saying that like it sounds like he doesn't give a fuck what spec he is. He just wants to PvP, which is
that's stupid.
Yeah,
it's fine. I don't want to raid with you.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
there's guilds that PvE for PvP, so he can join them.
Yeah, exactly, and that's totally fine, and that's at the very beginning. I think some things that we do might not like or get or understand, but at the end of everything that we do, for the people who do stay, get, and understand, will know that it's for the betterment of the guild. And they'll get that eventually. I've been in a few guilds where they say it's about the guild and it actually is about the guild. Generally they say it and then it's not as quick as they say it. And you'll find out if you stick through and look at the things subjectively and don't just always think of yourself, you'll realize, yeah, it's pretty good. And you'll get all the gear. Everybody was max geared on Anathema or on Nostalia's.
Can we not talk about our gear?
Like everyone had everything.
No, it doesn't mean
tanks
that...
had items that you should never see them with, just because we had everything. It's not like we don't realize loot is. At the end of the day, people do want to look sparkly and look cool.
Our tanks were wearing half DPS gear because our healers were so overgeared it was silly.
But that doesn't mean, like, with all of this...
because they needed to hold thread.
With all of this, we're always open. Like, if you have your own opinion and you want to talk about it, we want to hear it. Even if it's not something that we're currently doing, or if you're like, hey, what about this? Like, shouldn't we allow this item to go to this person? Or
how is the first piece of loot determined who it goes to if everybody has the same amount of PKP?
We do rolls generally for so basically we're going to inspect everyone when we're inviting them, because we're anticipating more than 40 players. So we're going to be inspecting to make sure that yes, this player is at least able to help us, and we'll inspect before we do it. We'll say these people are eligible based off the fact that they have the minimal requirements. I'm talking like they just have they've shown some effort in achieving some sort of readiness to be in the raid and deserve the upgrades. And if we find that, everyone's under geared, then that will be the minimum. Like, it's not like we're like, this is what you need to have in order to be. It'll be like, this is what the average of them have. You're drastically below the average or drastically above the average. You know, those kind of things. Like, we'll kind of make it fair, but it'll be roles, and it'll be based off of the system that we have in place of priorities. We'll earn DKP, but in every raid, the DKP you earn, you can't use till the next raid anyway, so it'll work the same way. Any raid that we're doing roles, DKP will be gained, but it won't be used. And it'll just be for the first general, usually first 2, sometimes we'll go 3 weeks, depending on if anything, you know, boss account or anything like that, if things change on the server. And then once enough DKP we feel is there to start bidding, we'll switch over to DKP, and then from that point on, it'll be the loot that we have in system, which is the DKP priority, along with the loot council on specific, already predetermined and mentioned items that the guild has determined is items of high-end worth that shouldn't be determined just by having a number of DKP.
And is 1 a.m. a hard stop time? Like, if it goes past that, and people are like, let's push.
So I'm East Coast, so 1 a.m. actually 1 a.m. for me. Some people here are West Coast, some people are Central. There's lots of different time zones in the guild, and understandably there will be some people who will be less tired than other players, but find usually by that 1 a.m. time people are playing sloppier than they did at the beginning. So if we're really close and it's a matter of the raid is going excellent and it could be another 10 minutes over, we'll go over if we have to, and that's if everyone is like, or the mass majority of people agree to it.
To that though, if we do ever go over, if you're like, no, I can't, and you leave, like, you're still gonna get the full DKP for whatever we do. So
Good
it's
point.
not like we screw you over in that sense, because it is a hard stop. But some, like, you know, in the last 3 years we've probably done like 4 or 5 times maybe,
Yes,
where we went
exactly.
like 20 minutes over, 15 minutes over, just to get one more attempt, and inevitably, like, every time we killed the boss in that attempt. So
Yeah, and
it has
we
to
just-
be really worthwhile.
we want raid to be taken serious, and that's again the reason for the hard stop is it's only a 3-hour raid. Currently we're only raiding 2 days a week. We used to raid Mondays as regular days, but with the content and just keeping things more light, we figure we'll be able to clear everything until AQ comes out under the 2-day, and then we will later add Monday if necessary. We were on a salary as Blackwing Lair and Molten Core in the same day, so it's not really a hard thing to do. But what we ask is people to kind of be focused during raid. Bosses aren't priority, trash is priority. Like, obviously bosses are important to be done properly and killed and executed properly, but trash is the most important thing, because trash is what you're going to spend 90% of your raid night on, not the bosses, if everything's going proper. So we kind of make it, it's a short raid, it's 3 hours, some people do 4 hours. There isn't necessarily a formal break. If we find that people are getting stressed on progression or something, we're going to take breaks so people just don't, you know, nothing happens. Realistically, we would like people to focus for that 3 hours. If you need to go up and go to the bathroom, you need to grab a drink, that's understandable. But people that need to take 10 minutes here, 15 minutes there, you're going to find yourself getting switched out for that time, and you might not be able to necessarily get back in right away when you want to be back in. So we'd ask people to stay on and focus, and that will clear up time and clear rates quickly and keep us competitive as well. I know people want to get things in and get things done.
So about the bench, how available do you have to be? Like, if you're 5-10 minutes away grinding while you're waiting?
Like, it's basically if we tell you you're gonna come in for this next boss, or you're gonna come in for these bosses, or you're gonna come in for anything, you need to be ready to come in, or else
You need to be
you're not
outside.
gonna be
More
You should be
than
grinding on and off.
likely, eventually we'll have warlocks and alt sparked outside of the raid we're doing.
Yeah, but that's still, like, ideally if people can be there waiting and not necessarily out grinding. Obviously I understand if we say, like, you know, later on, if people are going to voluntarily sit, and that's the thing too, like early on, yes, there's going to be fights over spots, but later on people are going to be asking to sit. I don't need anything, can I sit tonight? And that'll be great for when we have access players. We'll be able to tell players like, hey, we'll just be able to get in with nothing changing, kind of thing like that, and that's great. And those players that, as long as they stay in line for the duration of the raid, they can go off and do whatever they choose. If they decide they want to log out for the night, they're not going to gain DKP. So if they want a night off, by all means, they're welcome to do it. If they say, "Oh, I have enough DKP, the raid is healthy," I've let somebody know that I want the night off or something like that. No problem. Or I just raid tonight. We have plenty of people on, and we say that's no problem. They can go farm for the night, do whatever they want to do, PvP or whatever. That's no problem. But you want in for a boss, we're not going to hold the raid up because you want in for a boss. Because again, unless there's a detrimental reason, like you're a brand new tank in our guild and we're coming to a boss that drops the item that you need for more threat or something like that, we might look at that as something important. Again, probably not going to wait that long for you to show up. So being outside and ready is...
And also, like, if you are in that situation, you shouldn't expect to be... Like, let's say you really do want in for a boss, like, you should be going out of your way trying to, like whisper someone you know that doesn't need gear and be like, hey, do you mind if we switch for this boss? Like, don't leave it up to us in the middle of the raid to try to accommodate you. Like, try to take care of it on your own accord, and that'll speak numbers for, just
it'll make things easier.
Commitment.
I'm gonna... Pro's gonna have to help me. He's the Google Doc Master, but I'll be making up a channel from the server. I might just end up doing it myself, but basically it'll just show like what people want. The thing is with the sheet though, it's self-fill out. This is how I used to do it in retail. Is you will basically fill out on the sheet the items that you want, and if I go off that sheet, I can bring people in off that pretty easily. But if you want to work something out with somebody else, or if you don't really think that, hey, I don't really need this item as bad, I don't mind sitting out an extra long to get to this boss, or whatever, that'll be up to you to kind of figure out. But I'll be making that sheet up, and that makes things a lot easier too for players that...
But at the end of the day, like, more than likely, there's someone else that needs the item, so it's not like items are going to waste.
Yeah, and that's the other thing. We never want to see something go to waste. So we'll make sure people are in to get the item, and we'll recognize that.
So even when we get like a certain point where we're sharding gear, I would rather have someone come on an alt and just soak up all the gear than to shard it if possible, or whatever.
So any other questions?
Are you guys going to have a list of the exact items that are going to be loot cancelled?
Yeah, something over this week that I want to have happen. It is something that is kind of new that we're trying. So bear with us. It will, like, it's not going to be like you get it and there's no repercussions to you getting it. So we still have to iron out like what's fair in terms of costs, and like, because we don't want someone necessarily to be given like the best item and then also can still get 5 other items over you because they have the DKP. So that's something we're obviously taking very seriously.
We talked about just tagging on a percentage of your DKP.
Yeah. And that it doesn't, I guess we'll probably have like a certain criteria that you have to hit for that as well. Like, if let's say you're like next in line for this item, but you lately have not been showing up, like we're gonna take all of that into account. Like, it's not necessarily fair to go to someone that's not putting in effort or that doesn't hit a certain criteria. So I really want it to come down to like just basic numbers like, and
Yeah, it's not a popularity vote.
Someone in Guild asked a good question. They asked, what add-ons do y'all require?
The
Depends on your
standard
class.
KTM. We like people to run bigwigs, but as long as you have some sort of boss timers that are correct. So if you're finding your timers aren't matching up with what's happening, you need to adjust that so that you're not incorrect. If you're a healer, mage.
If you're a healer, you should be running. At this point, there's an add-on called Luna Unit Frames, which shows like healing done for the whole raid, and you can see incoming heals, and it's really very nice for healers. If someone knows of anything better, by all means let us know, but I'm pretty sure
using PF UI. I need to see if the heal comm works with people with Luna.
It does. I have it.
Like if stuff like that works together, you can use whatever you want, you know.
Yeah,
but
it
as
was
long
a
as
common library
up,
in Classic.
that's important. But yeah, just KTM bigwigs and Luna are the big three.
Luna has heal comm built in. You can download
eventually
heal comm.
there'll be like boss specific add-ons eventually that we'll want to get. But that's like AQ and beyond. So again, we're pretty much planning on, I mean, if we have a lot of people, like maybe on the first we can start doing like MC Trash Farm, but more than likely the first will be really pushing for Dire Maw, getting everyone as much pre-raid gear, because that's where like half of everyone's pre-raid gear comes from. And then the following week we're looking to do our first raid. If we are short people, we will pug. If there is potential of like another guild to help fill our numbers, we might be doing that as well. But at this point, like, we only have a couple 60s, and
got quite a few people above level 45 though, so it shouldn't.
Yeah, it shouldn't be too bad. But
yeah, we're a week off the
once
estimated
the
date.
first hits, the 40 manable content, like for raiding, will be taken out. Until the first, you can essentially 40 man UBRS and LBRS and stuff like that. So in the next couple of days, we really, if people are like in the low 50s, like we can even start doing guild runs like that and try to get people like the gear by just powerhousing through some of those raids.
Do you know what the requirements are for those raids? Level requirements?
45 is the requirement for UBRS.
Wow.
So start master recruiting field for raids. So basically they'll leverage time one that later on, once we have raiders assigned and stuff like that, if a raider's on time, he's going to take a priority over a recruit or take a priority over a member or anything like that. So they'll also have much more DKP. We don't really do a DK in the DKP, which is not quite as enticing for newer recruits, but we do a sometimes we do a form of a catch up for the players to make it so that they're not ineligible forever. But realistically, we want the recruit to put in time before they're getting loot, and they will still get loot even with that, just because of stuff. But generally, just being in the guild, being a raider, and just the DKP you've earned will put you far ahead of any other players. And if we're in the mass recruiting stage, like, that's not good. If you're talking about an absorb, again, we're not big on merges by any means. So if anything, it'd be an absorb, and again, those players would all be just recruits. So as a raider, you'll have priority over them every time.
So someone said in guild chat the other day that no one is quote unquote a raider right now, you know, besides
Correct.
officers and stuff. But nobody has a guaranteed raid spot as of right now, besides like, you know.
The people that are senior raiders were only given the senior raider rank because they're people we know, and that doesn't necessarily mean these are people that are raiding 100%. These are people we know who have played with us on other servers that we are friendly with. Some of them are European, some of them are just like loved ones of other people in the guild. By all means, they're as much a recruit as you are in the stance of where they sit in the guild. Raider is determined by 75% pre-raid best in slot, usually a 75% raid attendance over the month, proper consumes, proper everything. Raider is not just given to you because you're a friend, and that's again the thing that's kept us from having problems. Is we try to understand that yes, people are friendly here. Yes, people who have been in TeamSpeak this time, so a lot of the new recruits will realize that not that we're more friendly with people who come in TeamSpeak, but we're much more receptive to people who come in TeamSpeak because we find they're kind of
the
more
track
long-term.
record.
Yeah. So we just people by all means feel free to come TeamSpeak. You get a hold of us a lot more, but yeah, there's no raider yet. So raiders will be determined later, and it is an actual rank that you've earned. It's not just something you've been just given. And that also goes for the officers as well. The officers are held at a much higher standard than any player in this guild is. So you can expect them, should expect them to be excelling in everything that they should be doing. And if they're
besides
not,
leveling?
by all means, you should be bringing it up. Besides leveling. So one thing with the leveling, I apologize for my stance. Mostly we just did K3 really recently, and that's not to say for everyone because there's other people here that did K3 who have leveled in our 60 already. You can't rush MC. There, as you see, progression's already cleared. There's no race to first on any of these servers ever unless you're totally no-lifing it. This is a marathon, so I just want to get to 60 in a timely manner. I think this has been a fairly quick or a fairly respectable time frame for most people to reach 60, to not feel burnt out, but to still feel that we're not behind the curve by any means. There's only a few guilds. I think there's only 5 or 6, maybe 7 guilds now in Alliance that have cleared fully of Molten Core, so we're a week or 2 out. Don't expect progression to be long for Molten Core. Realistically, we'll be to Rag in the first night. So things like that. But leveling, yeah, not my strongest point. I'll make sure that in the other senses that we are ready and performing at the top. And if we're not, you make sure that you tell us and make sure that it's changed.
Quick question: if
Go
you
ahead.
don't get a raid spot like the first couple weeks, is it okay to pug with other guilds?
If you're told basically, like say I can't see it being that you sat it for the whole night unless there's a reason. Like you have absolutely put no effort into gear whatsoever, and you're not even being considered a member. And if you want to go find your gear that way, and you want to make their raids, it's not going to look great on. But later down the road, I foreseeably no, you won't be pugging anything. And if you are pugging, I can't see there being very many times when we would say, yeah, just you're not going to be in for the whole night and go find a pug. Like that just doesn't seem the way how we are. More likely we'll try to facilitate for people to feel that they've gotten their thing. But if you haven't had a raid spot at all in a couple of weeks, I would definitely be thinking otherwise, not so much like, oh, they just don't want me in raid. Start looking at your gear, start looking at like your enchants, start looking at your performance as other reasons,
we'll try to
not
be
so much
open with you and active. Like that's not something that like it should be like, hey, we'll tell you that why.
But like for this week and then for next week, for instance, because we're not raiding, you're more than welcome to. But that doesn't necessarily mean that if we change our mind coming next week that we do want to do like a trash farm Molten Core. We do expect people to be there, not to get themselves locked because they personally wanted to just gain a chance to get some loot when they could have helped their guild get their rep, to get our aqua contestants, or help to get gear for the guild. Because at the end of the day, that's what we strive to do, is to build the guild up and to be the strongest guild possible. So this week, by all means, this lockout starting tomorrow or this morning or whatever it is, go by all means. If you're 60 and you're itching to get into a raid, go to those Anis, go to the Molten Cores. But again, people who are 60 already, not that you haven't done an excellent job reaching 60 quickly, and kudos to you for doing so, but if you are able to help people, it is exceptional on this server because of the fact that it's scripted properly, in the sense that if you are mob tagging or quest tagging or doing whatever, they'll get the full experience and kill the mobs exceptionally quickly. You'll protect them from the constant ganking. Any help the 60s can do is not ever forgotten by pretty well any player or the officer staff. If we notice 60s are helping, or we notice higher level people are helping, or doing anything to try and get it so that the guild is raiding, because you just being 60, and again, not pointing a finger at a single player, because all of them have been helpful, especially when asked, but if you are 60 and you're not helping somebody to raid, you're like, it's not benefiting you either, because you're not getting an organized, effective raid where you're going to get a much better chance of getting loot than any pug that you'll be in. So the best thing to do is just help guildies anytime, and that's for everybody, and we'll get there much quicker. And also you might make some friends along the way, come in TeamSpeak, everyone's really friendly in here for the most part, provided, it's not a full moon or something like that.
I'm a dick.
But yeah. Done enough rambling. Then we got another question, or any more concerns?
Why can't Heracles get me by me?
The answer is never.
And so one thing we haven't mentioned for when it comes to loot, when we're actually doing bids, we do a blind bid. I have petitioned many times for a set number of bids to help speed things along. So we'll talk to the group about it for how we do that, but I would like for that. But basically what we do currently is it's a blind bid. Provided the item has not been declared as something that's going to be masked or looted, loot counseled, it'll basically be done by, here's the item, your priorities because it's linked. If you're unsure, you'll ask your class officer. Generally the person that's playing the class of yours is basically your class officer. We don't have class leader ranks, but all the officers can answer your questions based off what they're doing, kind of thing. If you don't know the priorities, please know them, because it takes a lot of time. If people don't know, it's very straightforward. It says the item, who it's for, rogue or warrior, or rogue then warrior, and things like that. Either way, we know the priority, so if you roll and you're not priority and we ignore you, it's not, again, because we don't like you, it's probably because you're probably not eligible for the item. And sometimes later on we just can't be time taking that. Anyway, so the item we linked, you will whisper the person that links the item. So whoever's doing the loot council that night, it switches depending on what's going on, but it's usually one of the officers. Basically, you'll whisper that person with your blind bid. There is a minimum on every item. If you want the item, I suggest you bid what you feel is what it's worth, because hopefully we can do the minimum amount of bids and it'll make it go faster. But anyways, you'll bid, we will announce the number, somebody else then can bid, we will announce the number. We don't say the player who's bidding, we don't say anything like that, because we don't want somebody just to cheat somebody out of an item just because they don't like them or just because of whatever. We try to keep it as secretive for as long as possible. Obviously, later on, people will start figuring out who is bidding based off of loot already distributed. But early on, it helps with the initial problem with people just not liking somebody. You'll bid. If you win the item, you will get the item for the DKP allotted. You can't obviously bid the same bid as somebody else. That's just counterproductive. And it'll be mentioned the 5 is the high, for instance. You must then bid higher.
Or 5 is the high.
Yeah. Generally, we'll try and get somebody that speaks up. We made a problem with that
This
one.
was brought up to me. If I assume loot is available from the chest in Domo. But priority for the eye for priests will go to the priest that has the other half. just so that you're not blindsided when we walk in there. That's how the prio for the eye is going to work. And then if multiple or all priests have the eye, it'll go to bids. Or rolls.
Also, all class-specific items, like rogue tier, warrior tier, anything that's tier item, something that other classes can't jump in on, by all means. Not that I super encourage it, but I encourage it because it accelerates loot. You may out loot with the other people of your respective class, you know, make a class channel if you want, and if you want to collude that way so that you know you're spending your items effectively, there's no problem with doing something like that. Just keep in mind that it's you do it in in a fair sense to keep your class working properly. Again, it's not going to benefit you overall with the huge things because big ticket, like say between rogues and warriors, things like CTS, things like pretty much every big ticket weapon is going to most likely be done through the master loot system. So you doing that so that you can screw over somebody for something like that. It just to speed up loot basically, but off pieces and things like that, that'll be all done through bidding. And warrior tank items given to warriors that aren't tanks are always free. Those are never charged, and they're also not done by you bidding. We give it to somebody that we may call on to tank, as in that's usually not the role somebody wants to be when they join as a DPS, so we understand that you do not need to lose for warrior tier because it's a useless piece to you 90% of the time.
With that being said, though, it's still a DKP system, so even if you're like, even if you do have like colluding or whatever, like if you really want a piece, you're always welcome to bid whatever you want.
Oh yeah, if you end up screwing people, that's up to you. Like if you work something out and then you just say, hey, you know what, actually I'm going to bid anyways, it's totally up to you. I'm just saying, if we find out people are doing it, we're not going to scold them on it because there's nothing you can do about it, but it just helps with tier moving along quickly instead of sitting there working it out.
You now have to deal with your pissed off people in class.
Yeah.
That you screwed over. You'll have to deal with them.
But yeah, realistically, and obviously, it's an interesting thing when it comes to the rogues and the warriors with it, just because warriors basically run only off pieces, where rogues will run a lot of tier and then a few off pieces, so they'll have a lot of DKP available to essentially dump on their few off pieces that are shared, and these things are all obviously noticed, so we're not going to allow things like that to happen every time. But obviously people are still eligible to win, so we're not just going to be straight up say they can't get it, but it may end up working out that some pieces may be considered a warrior prio over a rogue prio. This is just an example. It does this with other classes as well, but it may result in a prio. This is worked out by the guild so that it favors, so that obviously they don't have to fight as much amongst as many other classes when they have as many pieces as they need off pieces or a non-named piece that they can't work out. So like we'll definitely be looking into the prio systems to make sure it's absolutely as fair as possible, no matter what people try and do. But anything they want to do to speed up loot distribution, as in this is predetermined to who's going to go to, that is totally beneficial.
But
I know there's a lot of rambling.
If you're there, if you're consistent, you're gonna get all the pieces eventually, so it's all good. Are there any other questions?
Yeah, what's our raid schedule again?
Wednesday, Thursday.
Hey, I gotta schedule myself before school.
At this point, just Wednesday and Thursday at our normal times. Eventually, We'll add Monday back into the mix, but that won't be till AQ, basically. And then there should be plenty of notice for that.
Sorry, Pro, what did you say?
What?
You just said something. I didn't hear what you said there. Cut out for me.
Wednesday, Thursday, raid.
Okay. I'll be there.
Anything else?
When is our new projected raid day?
Thief.
The 8th.
Thief is not.
It would be
the
the
day.
8th. It would be the 8th of August.
Okay. Hooray! I don't have to raid on my birthday.
No, you just have to do a lot of DM.
So I can deal with Iron Maw.
I mean, raiding Molten Core on your birthday isn't what you wanted to do?
But once TeamSpeak is adjusted again, it'll be the more channels and stuff. But by all means, please utilize the TeamSpeak. Come in, hang out with people, get to know people. It really helps to make the whole raid gel. To just kind of know like the voices and stuff and that, and get to know people and how they are. We've met a lot of them already. Some people we've just messaged. But I appreciate the turnout. It was really good that everyone came in. And a lot of people came on in Guild there to chat, and that's good. And by all means, if anybody has any questions, we'll probably look to start working on the loot stuff for tomorrow. So if people want to partake, help out, you're more than welcome to, and we encourage it. And thank you for coming.
Triggerly disconnected from your channel default channel from the server.
Taste the flames of Sulfuron!
That's one.
That was perfect timing.
Good job.